So hello for all our attendees. I see you keep coming, so we give a few minutes just before we start the event. Okay, just 20 more seconds and I think we could start. I see there are still more people coming, but I guess I can start with short housekeeping rules. Like this, nobody will miss any content, but we can slowly start because I know that some of our speakers also have some time constraints. So while people are joining, I guess I can briefly mention that the session is being recorded. So there will be a recording that we will share after the event and it will be sent by email. A link to the recording will be sent by email to all the registered participants that we have more than 100 today. We also have enabled chat, so if any participants in the meeting want to exchange anything between themselves, start already networking, start additional discussions, please feel free to do this and use chat functionality. Meanwhile, if you have any concerns regarding your data privacy, of course, you can visit back our website where you have registered and accepted our data policy, or if you have any direct questions, please email us and we will be happy to guide you and answer any potential concerns you have. So, having said this, I guess we can slowly move on, and I think even more people might join meanwhile. But I can perhaps very briefly introduce myself. I'm Justina, I'm Innovation Director at the European Digital SME Alliance. So, our organization, as more or less the name suggests, represents European ICT SMEs. We work in multiple different digital topics of interest for our members. So, be it artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, sustainability, digital skills, ICT standards, of course, be it also emerging technologies. And hence, this is where the webinar of today come out of interest of members to go deeper and delve into topic of virtual worlds. We organize this webinar also on behalf of our partner Small Business Standards, that is organization representing SMEs in standardization. So in our case, we collaborate with SBS for ICT SMEs in ICT standards. Having said that, we have noticed quite some interesting trends in the industry. So we know that around 27 billion of euros are being created through virtual worlds. It was already the number a few years ago, and it's expected that overall market of virtual worlds might grow even to 800 billion by 2030. As such, metaverse, that is just a small corner out of all the virtual worlds, is expecting that its number of users just here in Europe by 2030 will be almost 400 million. So we can see how big the market is. And we also know that it's very often underexploited by SMEs. And this is why we think it's another important reason to have this discussion today and share it with our SME community. In addition, already towards the end of this year, we project that almost a million, a bit less, let's say 850,000 new jobs will be created in the indices of extended reality technologies and virtual worlds. So it's becoming not only the market where SMEs can develop, it's also the market where SMEs can sell. And in addition, it's the market where we need talent, and SMEs need to be aware that talent acquisition has to start on time. So there are different aspects to this discussion, and we will look deeper for both policy, practice, opportunities for SMEs, and also standardization side during our today's webinar. So I will not take any longer here. I will ask our keynote speaker, Anna Bajar from the European Commission, Deputy Head of Unit for Interactive Technologies, Digital for Culture and Education, to give us a little bit of oversight where Europe stands, what has Commission done. It has been a few years since you had strategy for virtual worlds. So I think we are very curious for you to set the tone, give us a bit of background before we start interactive discussion today.
Thank you, Justina. So my colleague Ines will show my slides. Yes, thank you so much. So I'm going to talk to you about virtual tours and Web 4.0. And I mean, it took us half an hour to be able to show my slide on screen. So we are still very far from there, as I usually say, but I think this is quite clear. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really happy to be with you, even if it's remotely this afternoon, and exchange a bit about indeed all the activities that we have at EU level on these exciting topics of virtual tours and Web 4.0. Next slide. I would like first to really remind you all of the vision that we have. I mean, but I'm delighted to hear Justina already mention that metaverse is just the corner of the whole picture of virtual tours and Web 4.0, because it's something that we have been repeating for the last 2 years. So it really shows that it is now percolating. And so I'm going to basically repeat a bit what she just said, is that we really have this long-term vision of the development of the way we are going to interact with digital and with computers. And we really felt like there was a need at EU level to prepare for this long-term future. So this is why we came with this vision and these definitions of virtual tours and Web 4.0, really a kind of place where there will be no difference anymore between the digital and the real world, where everything will really be blending seamlessly, and where all the devices and the people using it will just interact and communicate in it without any problem. So this is, of course, something that is not here yet. I mean, we are still very much into Web 2.0 for most of the things we do. We are gradually moving to Web 3.0, where things are a bit more decentralized, where you have digital twins. And we are going to be ready, you know, to this next step of this big thing that is Web 4.0. So I want really to highlight here that when we prepare for the strategy, I mean, we really wanted to prepare for this long term, not for the thing that could happen next year or the year after, really to make sure that Europe would set the tone and would really prepare and be the leader in this kind of things. Next slide, please. So basically, we came with this vision and this communication that Justina already mentioned 2 years ago, where we really want Web 4.0 and virtual tours to be developed to be, you know, places that fully reflect the EU values, principles, and fundamental rights. I think that sentence was already super interesting and important 2 years ago, but at the speed at which the world is changing these days, it becomes more important every day. I know that at the Commission in particular, we repeat this a lot for many things, if not everything we are doing, but it still remains something extremely important. If we want virtual tours and Web 4.0 to develop and to be used and for the good in Europe, we really have to make sure that this is done according to these values, principles, and fundamental rights. So we want these virtual tours to be places where people can feel safe, confident, empowered, where their rights as users, consumers, workers, or creators are fully respected, but also a place where European businesses can develop world-leading applications, scale up and grow. We want them to be fully open and interoperable, meaning that you have the full freedom of choice of the platform, of the avatars, of the tool you want to use. And of course, sustainability should be at the core of these technological developments, like for nearly everything we do linked to IT these days. So we came with this communication organized around 4 pillars. One was about people and skills, one about business and industrial ecosystem, one about government, and one about governance. Next slide, please. I don't want to present you this communication in detail anymore. I don't think it makes sense. So what I'm going to do is to take a few selected updates of things that we have for the moment hot and on the agenda, so that you can see the kind of things we are doing and where you can still contribute effectively. Next slide, please. But before that, I would like to show you that indeed we have done quite a lot under this communication. There was a set of 10 actions. We have done all of them, but one that I must confess was not in our remit, but in the remit of DG Grow, and they decided not to apply it. But we have really worked on quite many things in the last 2 years. If you have a look, and we have already covered most of the stuff we wanted to. They are now either finished or nearly finished or in the pipeline. And it means that we have now really a significant package of activities, actions, and initiatives at EU level that are supporting the development of Web 4.0 and virtual tools. Next slide, please. The first thing I would like to mention, which has been published recently, basically in March, is the Virtual Tools Toolbox. So when we prepare for the communication, we use for the first time a new tool proposed by the Commission, the Citizens Panel. So the idea is that you basically gather with 150 citizens from all over Europe, selected statistically. So we had people from every member state, from every age, from every kind of education, working, retired, studying. And we really discussed with them for 4 weekends about what they wanted us to do and how they were perceiving the development of virtual worlds. And one of the requests, the most important request they had, was the creation of a virtual worlds toolbox. It is really a place where they can get information about what to do, if they want to use these tools. So we now have it online. This is available in all languages from Europe. So this is not just in English. So to make sure that really everyone can really use it if they want. And you can there find information about, what are your rights, what you should pay attention to, how you can use these things, how you protect yourself, and so on. So that's quite a useful tool. And we hope that this is going to help also for the deployment of this in Europe. Next slide, please. We also promise in the communication to study a few important topics. One of them is really about monitoring the way virtual tours is evolving. So we have launched the Commission together with the GRC, a study that is now really in the pipeline. And they already published their first deliverable, which is basically a kind of policy brief about, the situation of virtual tours industry in Europe and outside of Europe. And this document is full of interesting statistics. So we, for example, learned that the estimate of virtual tours markets, is more or less 3% of the global digital ecosystem, which is already quite significant. We can see that most of it is happening in China, that EU basically only has 10% for the moment. But when it comes to seed funding, we are quite good because we are already second. So these are really just observations. There are no clear recommendations or actions taken from this. We really want through this study to monitor the situation and see how we can act for the best of Europe. Next slide, please. Then we also have a study finishing basically this month So the reports are going to be published very soon about the effect of using virtual tours on our health and well-being. This was also somehow a request from the citizens that they really wanted to know more about this. And what we could observe is that there were plenty of studies here and there, but the results were quite scattered. I mean, very different in the kind of systems they were considering to test, of the number of users tested and so on. So we really wanted to have a clear view to also see what would be, the next step if we would need to do more research and innovation in this. So the report will be published soon. I mean, it really identifies some areas where virtual tours can really be supporting health and well-being, but also some risk inherent to the use. It also highlights a lot after all the consultations they led, the opportunities that this could bring for vulnerable groups, where you could basically be at an equal level than other people by using these multimodal interfaces. And based on the recommendations that are going to be published there, we will see what kind of work we are now going to support more effectively in the coming months and years. Next slide, please. And then we also have in the pipeline an important study on standardization. And I see that Christophe is in the list of speakers, so he will probably tell you much more about this. This study, which is done in collaboration with Etsy, has already produced a very interesting first deliverable, the Standards Landscape Report. So this is really a super rich document full of information about ongoing standardization activities. And you can really see that they do cover a lot of topics. They are done in many different places. So we are really trying there to identify the gaps and to see how we could work better together in Europe to make sure that our voices are also heard in the international setup about standardization. I come back to the EU values I mentioned previously. This is equally important there, that if we have standards, we make sure that they are meeting the specifications that we would like to see mandatory for virtual tours and Web 4.0. Next slide, please. Just to highlight that further to this study on standardization, we are really working a lot on standardization in general, linking with different standardization bodies. There was a high-level conference last spring that also tackled the topic, and we have a focus group in our industrial coalition. I mean, there is more coming on this soon. It's just to really highlight that this is an important action in the communication, and this is really remains at the heart of the things we are doing for the moment. Next slide, please. That's a very new slide that I did yesterday because our colleagues from the media sector, so not our unit, the unit really dealing with the media, just published the European Media Industry Outlook report. And to prepare for it, they did a known study on audiences, consumer behavior, and preferences. And I mean, there is an interesting section about augmented and extended reality in this report. This is not the core of the report. It's just one of the possible technology that could be used for media in the future. But I mean, there are quite a lot of statistics there really done, about the feelings of the users. And I was particularly amazed to see that if people are exposed to using extended reality, only 3% says that they would not do it again. And to be honest, I would have expected more than that. So it really shows, nearly half of them said, look, this is great. So there is really I think, a kind of proof that this could really be deployed and become the next big thing more quickly than some people might think. There was another question about, they asked what they feel people feel could be the first applications. And without surprises, I mean, games are coming first, but it's still relatively balanced, I mean, according to applications. I mean, most of their communication, of course, we should not forget about games, but I mean, virtual tours and Web 4.0 can be used for many different things. I mean, they can help a lot in the industrial context. They can help for health. They can help for education, for many different things. And obviously, it also comes to the mind of the users when they are exposed to the technology. So that's a good sign as well, I think, for the future adoption and awareness of potential users. Next slide, please. Something that could be of interest for you, being SMEs, is all the work we are also doing on establishing regulatory sandboxes. So I don't know if many of you are familiar with the concept of regulatory sandboxes, but it's a tool that we are developing in different domains at EU level, where we want really to have places where we can test innovation in a controlled environment and trying to identify what would be the regulation gaps. So that's really a place established in a member states where you can do things without necessarily following all the rules immediately, but it's very well controlled and you are doing it in collaboration with the regulatory bodies of the place. And it really helps, you know, if we need further development of the regulation and the laws. So we are working on that with member states through an expert group that we have in member states where we discuss virtual tours and also through our industrial coalition. And let's see where it leads us because it's quite a heavy process. But hopefully we will have one relatively soon. And I think this could be also an interesting way to progress together in these domains. Next slide, please. Something that is also of interest for you are the 2 calls for evidence that we have currently open about legislative initiatives. So you know that when the European Commission is developing a legislative initiatives, we have these calls for evidence. So we basically ask people to come with their opinion. So you can submit your own opinion based on the document that we have already published on the Have Your Say website. And we have 2 open for the moment that could be of interest for you. One is about the future European Innovation Act, where we are basically talking about the sandboxes that I just mentioned. And one is about the 28th regime and the EU Startup and Scale-up Strategy. I don't know how many of you listened to the State of the Union by our President von der Leyen yesterday, but he mentioned the 28th regime quite prominently in our talk. So the idea is really to create a specific regime for SMEs dealing with digital, where you will not have to register in every single member state to really run your business. There will be this kind of special 28th regime where you can really have something easier to do. So that's something that is prepared at the legal level at the EU. And if you have something interesting to say about it, just go to the Have Your Say website before the end of the month and you can see what to do there. Next slide, please. I want also to highlight here, I mean, the set of EU-funded projects that we have. I mean, we have been funding research for already 10 years in the domain. First, it was very much restricted to cultural heritage and education. Then it moved gradually to extended reality industry and now really to virtual worlds and everything that goes with it. And we have produced a leaflet earlier this year where you can really find all these projects. And if you open it, you will see this is amazing, the ecosystem that we have in Europe. When it comes to large industry, to SMEs, to academia, to end users. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, we are really sitting on a wealth of research results that we should probably exploit much better. And I want also to take the opportunity of this slide to mention a report that has been just published by XR for Europe, an association, and Michael is also talking after me, I think, so he will tell you more about this, where they really did this very good analysis of funding related to extended reality. So beyond the calls that we are dealing in our unit, really the whole setup, and you will also see that we really cover there a lot of things. And this report also interestingly highlights, you know, maybe gaps and challenges that we still have that we should try to solve in the future. Next slide, please. We have currently some open calls. I still kept the slide even if the deadline to submit is 2nd of October. So I'm pretty sure that those of you who wanted to be involved, you are. For the other one, you will have to wait for the next work program. But we have for the moment 4 open calls dealing really with the core technologies, with the use of generative AI for virtual tours, supporting the virtual tours partnership and the ecosystem. I come to that in a minute. And also a call supporting the building blocks needed to make Web 4.0 happen. So this is a nice bunch of different projects that we will have in the coming years. I mean, just to show that the budget are quite substantial, and we are really developing more and more all this set of projects that is going to help us. Next slide, please. We also have an open call on something completely different under the Digital Europe program, which is the Virtual Tour Skills Academy. So one of the pillars of the communication is about skills. So when we talk to industry, I mean, one of the most common complaint is that they cannot find the right people to develop virtual tours. Virtual tours is really a highly multidisciplinary domain where you really need to have people who have the technical background, but are also very much aware of all the rest. Would it be the artistic background, the legal background, I mean, the ethical background. So there is room there to really go beyond someone who is only specialized in computer science or in AI or whatever. We are going to call for 4 different sectoral digital skills academies. Once again, the call is in the closed 2nd of October. It's quite a lot and quite a high budget for each academy, 10 million euro. And as you can see, virtual tours is one of the 4 topics considered as extremely important for Europe, together with AI, quantum, and semiconductors. I think that just that shows how much effort we plan to put in this. And even if you are not involved in this proposal, once we will have the project and we will see how to work together to create all this training, all these, you know, classes, online classes, curriculum, how we can really optimize the competence and qualification framework when it comes to teaching virtual tour skills and so on. I think the whole community will have to be involved. So that's something you should keep an eye on it once we have the project also, probably early next year, to see really how you can get involved in this. Next slide, please. And then something that is coming soon. So this is going to open in October, most probably. So I take a risk showing you the slides because the call text is not published yet, but this is coming and you can already find it in the work program. It's the virtual tour test specs. So basically, up to now, through Organised Europe, we have been funding many research. And we are now moving gradually to something which is more about deployment. And we plan to call for the development of 2 sectorial test beds, one for industrial applications, one for societal applications, where, you know, it's really like, I don't know, some of you maybe might be familiar with the TEF in AI. This is a bit the same idea. So that's really a place where you can test your system, you can see already a bit when it comes to certification, you can get advice if you need. I mean, that's really, you know, progressing in the value chain. And of course, very naturally, there will be links as well with the possible regulatory sandboxes I mentioned previously. So we are really step by step covering the whole value chain as we progress also in the development of the technology in Europe. Next slide, please. And then that's just to show you, and I mean, this is really a very first draft. I really want to insist on this. For the first time, I can talk about this now because it's published in the Comitology Register, but please take it from what it is. It's a very first draft, still very much under discussion with the member states. But in the next work program, virtual tours will remain quite prominently with quite a high budget to that. We will have a call really focusing on hardware for the first time. This is an important part of the the sovereignty, of Europe. So this is going to be very important. We will have a call covering the core technologies again, all the applications, all the technologies needed to develop it. We will have a call about the open internet stack. So that's really a bit like what we have now, but going a step further to really have the, I would say, underlying infrastructure that allows for virtual tools to develop and to deploy. And then again, condition and support action to support the ecosystem. So this is going to be a good set of projects again, coming soon. And I mean, keep an eye on it. I mean, really the date, impossible to say for the moment. We don't even have a work program yet, but this should be sometimes early next year. Next slide, please. And then I would like to finish with something which is extremely important and coming now. One of the action of the communication was the creation of a virtual tools partnership. So a partnership is, a tool used by the Commission for topics of political importance, where we basically commit to work together with an association representing all the stakeholders. I mean, it took us quite a long time to come to this, more than 1 year, but we are now more or less to it. So it should be signed very soon, and it should happen very soon. I mean, everyone will be welcome in this partnership. So this will cover industry of every sizes. And I would like really here to make a call to SMEs, because I know this is sometimes a bit more difficult for you to spend some time and some effort in participating to this kind of activities. But this will be extremely important that you are engaged in this partnership if you want your voices heard. Through the partnership, we are going to develop together the research priorities of the future calls, I mean, the future activities and initiatives of the Commission. So if you want your voices heard, you have to be represented there. So that's really super important. We will also have the academia. We will have links with policymakers also at national, regional, and local levels, because we cannot work in isolation. And we will also try to involve as much as possible the end users, being unions, customer associations, sectoral application users, to really, have an informed discussion on every single items that we need to progress on to really make it happen in Europe and for the best of Europe. Next slide, please. So to do this, we need to really join forces. The Virtual Trolls Association was just born 2 months ago now. This is led by Siemens. Siemens really agreed to take the lead on this. They are an important player in the field of virtual trolls in Europe. So this is quite a good sign that they are taking the lead. And we have already a set of 18 funding partners. So these are people who are really starting the work, bringing their own resources and time. I mean, thanks a lot to all of them. We are covering already quite many member states, but this is just the beginning. So, I mean, the names there are just the people who really accepted to initiate the work. You will be able to become member very soon. Their website will be online, I think, next week. In the meantime, there is this email if you want more information, but I think this is not even needed anymore, because in the very next days, you will find a website with all the information on how to become a member, and also a first version of the strategic research and innovation agenda. Next slide, please, which is something that is going to be the main tool that we are going to use to develop together the priorities and the research priorities and the goals. So this is a huge document covering all the applications, all the technologies, all the things that we need to develop, and where you can find a lot of information about what needs to be done. This is a document that is drafted by the association, so by you, the stakeholders. And based on this, we will work together in the future. So that's really a new way of working, like for all the other partnerships, by the way, but for virtual trolls. And I'm really confident that this is going to be a game changer also in the coming years about how we develop all of this together. Next slide, please. And I would like to finish by reminding everyone that to create this partnership, we had the industrial coalition I already mentioned. Maybe some of you are members of it. The coalition is not going to die. It will probably play a slightly different role now that we have the partnership. But if you are interested, you can still register to the coalition. You just have to send an email. I mean, the website is mentioned there, or you type virtual and augmented reality in virtual coalition and you will get to it. I mean, this is for free. I mean, you have to be based in the EU to be member of it. And basically, you also, I mean, when you apply as your organization, not in your personal capacity. So you have to make sure that your organization wishes to become member. But this is also through this coalition that we will keep people updated about the launch of the partnership. So this is it. The next slide is my last one, is to say that further to this event, we are quite active in different events. The NAM Summit in Berlin, I mean, for some of you might be there. The XR for Human Conference at the end of this month in Brussels. And the first Europe United XR event that is merged between AWE and Stereopsia early December in Brussels as well. This is done for me.
Thank you very much, Anne. That was definitely very, very interesting and a lot of information for those participants who didn't know it yet. I see that your presentation inspired a bit of discussion in the chat. There had been interest in the reports you presented. And also it encouraged some others share the reports and overviews that they have developed in their organizations. So that's really great, also very actionable. And I'm sure for many, this little hint that you kindly gave us on the future calls has also been a very curious and important next step. We very much welcome also the fact that you focus on European innovators in the field and that coalition is open for European-based entities, which is definitely very important, I would say, in the given geopolitical landscape and very important to enhance European industry. So that was really nice, and thank you, Anne, very much. As
Well,
the next,
is
as
there any questions I should answer, Justina, or is it fine? Because I could not follow the chat while I
Yeah,
was.
I think it's fine. There was question a bit more specific, so I don't know, maybe you want to have a look and write also in writing for your colleagues
Okay, I will have a
about
look now. Okay,
consumption media content report and what content did participants get access to when the report was compiled. So it's a bit specific. Maybe you want to have a look. It's more or less on the top of the third message in the chat.
okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you really for very, very insightful presentation and also actionable so people know what can we do after this webinar. And I think my colleagues will present even more additional things here and there. So hold on with us till the end of today's event. And now we will go to a more practical session where we will have actually industry participants, those that do actively contribute to the development of Web 4.0 and virtual worlds. And here I will pass the word to my colleague Lina Nardone, who will moderate the session with our practitioners.
Thank you so much, Justina. Hi, everyone. This is Lina Nardone from Digital SME team, and I am honored today to moderate this panel about standards, innovation, and opportunities in Web 4.0 and virtual worlds. Before deep diving into the matter, let's discover who is with us today. We have Christoph Rande, Managing Director of Virtual Dimension Center Feldbach and Vice President of Industry and End User of Euro XR Association. Ismael Arribas, I hope I pronounce it correctly, CEO at CAMFund, and Michael Barngrover, Managing Director at XR for Europe. So before addressing the matter and explore with you what are the challenges and opportunities for SMEs there navigate the landscape of Web 4.0 and virtual worlds, I would kindly ask each of you to pitch yourself, introduce a bit what is your role, your job, starting from Michael. If you could briefly introduce us your role at XR for Europe, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for having me and for your opening presentation and setting the stage for everyone. I'm the managing director of XR for Europe, so that means that I'm kind of involved and usually leading all of our activities, which focus on matchmaking and bridge building between different national and regional ecosystems across Europe. Also among many of our members who are not associations as such, but are institutions, research institutions, as well as a lot of SMEs. In fact, we're really seeing more membership, growing membership in the SME space, which we're happy to see because that's the trend. To kind of maybe preempt one of the points later in the discussion is really about that's where a lot of energy is. SMEs with the European perspective and European vision. So we are participating in several Horizon projects, particularly 2 CSAs. One that's finishing at the end of the month, which is the XR. Well, it has its final event at the end of the month, which is XR for Humans. So we in those projects, our role is to engage the industry, diverse industry stakeholders in the process of these projects and in other projects that we're a part of in the healthcare space through the Interregional Innovation Investments Program. So we are participating in a lot of EU projects as well, helping our members to understand and recognize opportunities for these projects, either directly as beneficiaries or to adopters of the technologies that come out of the projects or recipients of cascade funding and such. And then we conduct our own independent research that we feel contributes to the broader ecosystem's visibility and policymakers and decision makers at the institutional SME level as well about virtual worlds and XR across Europe. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Michael. I will now ask Christoph to talk more about his role as a managing director at WDC Euro XR, but also about his involvement in the Openverse and StandICT virtual worlds technical working group, if it's possible.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Lina, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. So yes, I'm actually doing something similar like Michael on a regional level with the Virtual Dimension Center. So we are a cluster network technology transfer initiative in southwestern Germany, but also definitely with a national impact here in Germany. So we are doing enablement of companies, in particular SMEs, for using virtual worlds for their own usage, mainly in professional applications. So industry, healthcare, construction, trade and commerce, and handicraft, and so on. So not really games and entertainment. That's other associations that are doing this. And my role in the Euro XR Association, well, Euro XR is an association that's running since, I think, 25 years already now. It's also doing a lot of transfer on the European level in the field of virtual worlds. Last week, we had the big annual conference in Winterthur in Switzerland, where the community came together. And yes, as you correctly said, I'm also involved in XR and virtual worlds standardization. So I'm a chair of the working group for, it's called XR and Metaverse at the German Standards Institute, the dean. So we are the German voice of Metaverse and XR standardization to ISO. And I'm also chair of the standards registry working group in the Metaverse Standards Forum. And yes, now in the StandICT initiative, we're going to also create a technical working group on virtual worlds, and that will be launched in September. And I just received the confirmation. I think the kickoff meeting will be on September 30th. So we are just starting now on this, and I'm very curious and looking very much forward to do this, because I think there's a lot of work ahead of us in virtual world standardization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christoph. Let's close this round of introduction with Ismael. If you can briefly talk about your role as founder and CEO of ComFund.
Yes, thank you, Lina. Welcome all of our attendees today. It's really a pleasure to share this round table with Christoph and Michael and with you. Well, I could qualify myself as a collective entrepreneur, and that means a lot for my work because I believe in the collective knowledge too much since the beginning. We launched Kung Fu in 2006, as the premier international security mercantile agency. In those beginnings, there were no digital impact in our business, but fortunately, 10 years after the foundation, we received a lot of impact in regards of standards, in particular with the International Standard Organization, where currently I am a liaison for various organizations like INATPA, OECD, Open Geospatial Consortium, and others, and the convener for the Working Group 3 of smart contracts in the TC 307 in regards of blockchain and distributed layer technologies. I was contributing with ITUT, where we received various awards for our contributions. Moreover, in my vice chairman with the Working Group 3 for Metaverse and its applications. And our role, our main activities are pretty much focused on digital reporting at many levels. We are working in the dark verse and dark web, and really with a very nice initiative from UNICEF for protecting the children's rights. So, well, I think that could be a good start for the discussion with our colleagues here, and very pleased to be with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ismael. Thank you for the three of you. It was very inspiring to know more about your job and what are you doing with this emerging technology. So after this introduction, I think that we can just go straight to discuss the matter and see together what are the trends, the challenges, the opportunities that SMEs can encounter where dealing with this technology. So my first question is for Christophe. So from your perspective, what do you see as the biggest opportunities that virtual worlds technologies present today for European businesses and SMEs?
Yes, it depends a little bit on who we're looking at. I mean, on the end user side, so on the industries, different verticals, of course, you can have a look on the certain class of classical applications where you can use virtual worlds for example. Of course, you got everything to do with planning, development, design, virtual prototyping, and so on, which can affect cars or houses or cities or whatever. So building virtual prototypes. Then, of course, you got everything to do with assistance, guidance, navigation. So that's rather topic of augmented reality. You got, of course, training and education applications. You can have use cases in quality assurance and validation, of course, and all that has to do with communication, collaboration, presentation, marketing, sales, and so on. So this is really cross-sectional, what I mentioned here. It can be applied to various verticals. And what's also, I think, what's also sure what can be said is that yeah, the level of application, it's different. Some branches are rather in training, for example, defense or medical applications. And some verticals are rather in prototyping, like transportation, for example. But I think there are opportunities for any verticals. It just depends on what department we are looking at. And so that was rather end user side. And for the technology providers, so what can we do here from European side? I mean, we got all technologies and we got all the know-how that is needed both to build hardware and to build software. But we also see that in the economies of scale, it's quite hard to build mass market electronic devices still in Europe. I mean, it's really something where the design has maybe left here in Europe or in the US, but the manufacturing is done somewhere else in Asia. And meanwhile, we got we still got some manufacturers of XR hardware here in Europe, but it's not comparable to the numbers that we got in other parts of the world, of course. But I see the biggest opportunities, of course, in software content and integration solutions that come from Europe with all this backgrounds and the strong backgrounds that we have in the application fields of virtual worlds. So we know how to to build trains, how to build aeroplanes, how to build cars. We know how to build houses and so on. And this know-how needs to be implemented in virtual worlds application systems. And of course, that's nothing that can be done by companies like Meta or Microsoft. That needs to be done by those companies who own the legacy IP and who have the knowledge. And those companies are definitely here in Europe. So these are really big opportunities that I see.
Thank you so much, Christoph. That's kind of reassuring to hear, considering also the geopolitical landscape we are now living in. So looking a bit in the past, I would like to hear from Ismael, what's your industry take on the past developments of these technologies? And looking at the present, what are the current gaps and opportunities in your opinion?
Well, thank you, Lina, for this complex question, because as I said before, I think we came from a competition and we are going for a collaboration, effective collaboration. So we all are learning from multi-diverse knowledge. So I would say that currently a key factor is the interoperability, but also the transition of identity management for objects, for things, and for process, indeed. And these two pain points, I would say, still pain points, are at the same level an opportunity. In terms of interoperability, I have detected working within different standard development organizations. In ETSI, I was rapporteur for the interoperability of permission distributed layers, and I had the opportunity to harmonize with the telco industry of Europe, and not only in Europe, how to understand interoperability, distress a little bit the technical conceptual approach, if I could say, for a kind of more user point of view, because if something is working, the user is going to use. It doesn't matter what is this technicality. I want something that is working. When I click here, I interoperate there. So all of this stuff that we are working is very important to help the regulatory affairs, because of the neutrality principle about the technology. But making sense that could be an interoperability that could be directional or bidirectional, which is the challenge. Let's say bidirectional space is the challenge. But then appear a lot of concepts like uniformity, transportability, portability, other kind of things. So there is an opportunity to listen other kind of skills, not academic. We are helping various universities around the globe for micro-credentials of human competencies, because we can learn what is needed from the user perspective. And this is a huge opportunity. Get it out from the academic, but in conjunction with the academic situation, right? And the main challenge for me is an ubiquitous computing is continuously bringing challenges. So risk in terms of cybercrime and even human malevolence. Sometimes we don't have this social ability to coordinate our harmony in the off-chain, if may I say, that in the virtual world and Web 4.0, and even coming with a Web 5.0, with the current publication from IEEE from the spatial protocol, I think that is a huge challenge, in my opinion.
Thank you so much, Ismail. I think it's a very important point, the one you're raising, the one about skills, but also about behavior of the users, because we must not forget that even if it's virtual, we still have to have societal skills. So I will now go to Michael to ask you a bit about what kind of trends and innovation you currently see in the adoptions of these technologies in Europe and in SMEs?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'll rephrase the question or maybe make a distinction a little bit. The trend in terms of the trends of regarding technology that is being adopted in the production of immersive content applications and experiences. The obvious one is that AI, now it's almost impossible to find a virtual world or XR product or application or content, entertainment experience that does not communicate that it's leveraging AI in some way. And it's just interesting to see that, because oftentimes the application is not particularly novel or not particularly noteworthy, but it's just it kind of highlights that virtual worlds are so broad um, that they can encompass almost any type of innovation. It's just people have said, for example, that virtual worlds is the medium by which most people will engage artificial intelligences, particularly the generative ones, going forward. It's that the domain of human and computer interfaces, basically, and AI, human AI interfaces. So I would say we're seeing that adoption of generative AI extensively throughout the creation and the communication and the marketing of virtual worlds. In terms of perhaps like trends more for money making, I get, because I don't know that the AI, I don't know that the inclusion of generative AI into virtual worlds is yet generating revenue other than perhaps in the form of investment. But what I am seeing is just a lot more global exporting. Many European companies are serving international markets. And when I say international, I mean outside of Europe. And I don't know if that's a trend. It's just something that we're seeing more, because I know it's something that we look at in our research, and I think definitely is, if it's not a trend, it's growing. It's becoming more prominent. And I think it's actually one of those areas where we have not come close to tapping the potential in international markets for European production of applications and products and software in this space. And it's an area where definitely much more can be done to kind of create like a branding, a European branding, a distinct concept of what European virtual worlds distinctly offer as a collection, as a grouping. And I think there's a real potential for that in other markets of the world. Africa is very much, I think, an untapped market that Europe would be really well positioned to explore. European SMEs would be very well positioned to explore. Obviously, some do, but I think that there's so much more, and that virtual worlds has a lot to offer in that, in intercontinental relationship. Definitely, like, some markets like Ireland are very North American focused for export. Spain and Portugal are very South American, Central American oriented. So, in those have obvious reasons. But a trend that we saw last year that curious to see if it would continue is the GCC being a major buyer of European content and services and software production and virtual worlds. Hard to say, because that's so much based off of just a handful of countries and very centralized decision making, but definitely it has been in recent years an increasing priority market for export. And so that's just something I think it's important to highlight, is how competitive at the international level European virtual worlds producers, product developers, and experience creators are globally.
Thank you so much. I think it's really interesting to understand also what are the markets out there besides Europe. And I agree with you that indeed Africa, it's an untapped market for the moment, where I think that European SMEs could really deploy their potential, the potential or their solution. But I want to stay with you for just 1 minute because I want to know from you, considering what we heard from the opening of the European Commission, if there are some policy developments that were, like explained before, that are especially important for your association agenda.
Yeah, very much. I mean, I think the point that Anne highlighted that really stood out to me the most, because I have to admit I wasn't aware of it, was this effort to create maybe like a single corporate registration that would apply across the single market. So one trend that I didn't mention before was this increasing emphasis on supporting SMEs to scale on the single market. And for us, that's really important because many of our members, the SME members, they join an association like XRF Europe because they have the ambition to grow within the European market and perhaps beyond, but definitely within the European market, the single market. And oftentimes it's very challenging for them. And there's many inherent challenges to grow into other markets. It's not trivial, and policy is not going to change all of it. But I think anything that would simplify something as routine but essential as registration and maintaining your registration, simplifying that across the whole of the EU is exactly that type of thing that's going to make it easier for companies to shoulder the other burdens, the language, the localization, the relationship building that has to be there when they go even to another city, let alone another city on the other side of a border within the single market. So that's the one that stood out to me. But that's kind of one noteworthy point within this broader topic, which is it's about scaling up SMEs, which highlights actually a point that we need to see more consolidation in the space. But you can only consolidate when you start to have fewer national market-focused SMEs and have more SMEs that are not really bothered or dissuaded by the borders within the member states.
Thank you so much. Christophe, I see you nodding. Since you're also in an association, maybe there were some points that stood out for you too. Do you want to add something?
No, I fully support what Michael said. That's absolutely correct. And yeah, I mean, to support companies, definitely that's yeah, one of the points that I think that are central. And I think that is really, I mean, Michael is doing his job for many years, and I'm doing my job for many years, and I think we know quite well where our contribution is welcome, and where gaps and lacks are, and where we need to do something. And so, yeah, absolutely correct.
That's great to hear. So I will now pass a bit more on the standardization side. We deep dive a bit that matter. So Ismael, since you have worked for so long at the intersection of business, technology, and standards, could you please provide further insights on how this domain kind of interlinked?
Yeah, thank you for the question, because in our case, by the way, I fully support what Michael said in regards to the SMEs. And in our case, we had no idea in the moment that we entered into the space of standards. It was in 2016, almost 10 years ago. And as long as I was working with knowledgeable experts, different kind of countries' perspective, and influence of all of these national markets gave us competitiveness. And it's something that perhaps is out of the blue, because we work editing and harmonizing or looking for a consensus for a particular paragraph in a particular document. But at the same time, it's giving a harmonized understanding of what the market. Indeed, the vice president of the International Standard Organization, who is currently under the domain of Spain, Javier said that who writes the standard define the market. And that is very interesting reflection, because the market is not the regulation. Regulation can create the perimeter, but in technology are the standards who really define the market. So in our case, this is the intersection. Go to market, not fulfill the regulatory affairs of your particular framework. Go into market is what we learn from standards. We achieve competitiveness thanks to working on standards, understanding what is the standardization, not only the jure, even de facto. The jure for sure, but as well of de facto standardization efforts. That could be my humble response.
Thank you so much for your take on this. Staying on the standardization topic, Christophe, we heard briefly from you during the introduction about your work on standardization. But from your experience, looking at standardization in virtual worlds, where do you see the most pressing gaps? And in your opinion, how are the European stakeholders reacting to address them?
Yeah. So we are just still in a project that we are doing, financed by the Commission and governed by ETSI, to do this standards landscape report that Anne mentioned in her presentation, but also which is public. I entered the URL into the chat here, but we're also doing a standards recommendation report, which will not be public. Currently, I'm writing on executive summary. I hope that this could be published afterwards, but it's not depending on us. And so, yeah, we had a really detailed analysis of the current situation. And I mean, when we're talking of gaps, I mean, it's not only gaps in terms of what standards are still missing. Of course, there is a number of fields that I could mention, for example, data interoperability, portability, exchange standards, so that you, for example, can take your digital assets from one platform to another. Standards for open, interoperable spatio-temporal computing, for example, to integrate virtual worlds into legacy IT and into legacy digital twins. Many verticals do have already digital twins, like the machining or the construction and city planning and so on. They are not called digital twins. They are called building information modeling or product lifecycle management systems and so on. But in fact, they are digital twins. And of course, virtual worlds have to be integrated to them. Privacy by design principle could be another topic. So this is fields where we see, and there are many, many more fields where we see that good standards for virtual worlds are still missing. But I think one of the challenges that we still have, it's rather the structural and contribution issues that we have to the standardization processes. So are we sure that companies in Europe, or also research organizations, or in particular SMEs, are aware of the standards that are out there, are aware of the standards that have already been published? Are organizations in Europe aware of all the working groups that are currently developing standards that will affect them in a few years? And so the bad transparency of the standardization system, I think that's really a problem that we currently face. It's due to the high number of standards organizations, to the vast number of working groups. It's more than 300. So this is really an issue. And I think also concerning the adoption, we could do more. What else do we have as recommendations? standards education programs. So how is standardization working and how can I engage myself? So it's both the passive usage of standardization of standards and also the active contribution to the standardization, which is not at the point where we really can be satisfied currently. So it's not only the gaps on the landscape, but it's also the structural issues that we see where we see gaps currently.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I've been informed that we are a bit late, running out of time. So I will just have one question for you all. If you could please summarize in 1 minute your conclusion and give us your opinion about the way forward, how to move with these new technologies, and what's your take for SMEs. Michael, starting with you.
Could you rephrase the question because I missed the
Sorry,
question
I was so
yeah.
fast. What are your recommendations for the future, looking
Yeah.
ahead, considering what we said before?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is to whom am I recommending? Because there's so many people that I could suggest that they should do something. But I'll answer my own question here. My recommendation to SMEs, because I think oftentimes in these discussions, SMEs are kind of in the position of receiving suggestions and advice. So actually, I guess I'm going to just stick with that by giving them a suggestion. But I think SMEs need to, they just need to be more, I don't want to say aggressive, but more ambitious. I would say a little bit with regard to what Europe has to offer them. Because as I said before, I alluded to, oftentimes I say this is an analogy. It's not a great analogy, but I feel like I know more French virtual world companies, XR companies, or more Romanian or more German companies than I know European companies. And by which I mean that I know many more companies that see themselves in a national context first and foremost. That's where most of their business is. And for example, there are Belgian companies that I know that say, well, France, I don't work in France. I can't work in France because I'm not French. And you say, well, but you speak French. Everything you do is in French, and you attend. There's a lot of interconnections, but there's still this definition that these companies sometimes will still have, and it costs them opportunities. And I think at the same time, it's really just not fulfilling the potential that is right next door and right within their home market, which is not a national market alone. It's a European market. That's their home market. So that's my suggestion to SMEs that we need to see going forward is just more of this embodiment of that self-identification and with the ambition that comes along with it.
Thank you so much. Ismael, what would you recommend to European SMEs?
Well, this is a kind of the same message, like Michael, braveness. Let's be brave and shameless as well. Because SMEs, when we go for a project, we go for it in a practical way. It's not like a big company that is like a dinosaur, need to study perfectly all the budget, all these perimeters, and then probably the project will not get any kind of conclusion, just rather is not viable. SMEs take risk, and this braveness, if we don't forget that this cooperation area, we have a European framework. We have different habits, so we have a diversity. We have a diversity in languages, as Michael was mentioned. So really, we have an opportunity to make impact because the global perspective from big companies or other kind of entities are totally different. So I join this message from Michael. Definitely, he made a conjunction of what I felt. Thank you, Lena.
Thank you so much. Christoph, what about you?
Thank you. Yeah, so to my opinion, Ismail said it correctly. Who defines the standard defines tomorrow's market. So standards mean interoperability also throughout Europe, of course, and they also will lead to digital sovereignty because they make platforms and products interchangeable, exchangeable, of course. But we need more engagement, both in the usage, but also in contributing to standardization. When I'm at ISO, I see that, okay, I'm representing the German voice, there are Frenchmen and so on, but there's no Spanish voice, there's no Swedish voice, no Italian voice, and that's not correct. So please to everyone, go to your local dealer, make a country working group that's then contributing to those standardization committees and engage.
Thank you so much. I will thank you, the three of you, for your insightful contribution to this panel discussion. We wrap it up here. And I will pass now the floor to my colleague, Gabriele, which will continue.
Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you very much also to the panelists. I will just connect also to the last point made by Christoph. We definitely need more representation in standardization, especially from the SME perspective. And for a brief overview, I will also provide you with some opportunities that we have at European level to engage more in standardization, especially for newcomers. So let me allow me just to present just a few slides. As we have seen from the European Commission keynote, we definitely have a very good infrastructure of both project and opportunities coming from the European level, not only at national, but the European Union is very active, is providing a lot of funding, especially from Horizon 2020, but also Horizon Europe, also additionally boosting the funding for projects that are creating a virtual worlds ecosystem. So the opportunities are there. There is also, as mentioned before, a very good report on funding made by XR for Europe as an association. So definitely worth check it out if you want to also know more about European opportunities, projects, and also funding opportunities. Regarding on the standardization side, there are also a lot of opportunity to engage in standardization opportunities, especially also as newcomers. So you don't need to be a consolidated expert in the field. There are also a lot of funding opportunities, but also materials and programs that you can use. One of the leading projects at European level is StandICT, in which also the European Digital SME Alliance actively participated in the last 3 years. It has provided more than 3 million euros to support especially key international and global participation of European ICT experts in standardization. Of course, the SME angle is also well represented, and we have also launched this year a StandICT mentorship program, especially catered to SME representative that would like to know more on how to engage in standardization. So even people with less experience, especially on the very complex and technical standardization world, can get more information, especially tips and tricks from consolidated experts. So we are also trying to boost the creation of a new generation of European experts, especially for more SMEs to participate in standards making. As Ismail said, it's in the conjunction between business and technical work, and it has also a very important impact on the business opportunities. StandICT also has a lot of resources in its standardization academy. So if you also are a newcomer in the field, you can read a lot of documents, a lot of information are displayed there, very neat, made by standardization experts. So feel free to check them out. In addition, as also was mentioned before, StandICT is also launching a new technical working group on virtual world standardization. The kickoff will be later in September, but you can also remain engaged because it will start its work after September, the kickoff, but then it will create a lot of useful materials, including also webinars and expert roundtables, but also landscape and gap analysis. So get engaged, and if you are particularly interested in participating to the technical working group, feel free to reach out to either me or even spend the city directly to know more about this endeavor, which is also chaired by our speaker, Christoph. Finally, I also wanted to give an actionable part to this meeting. As we said, there are a lot of different opportunities and initiatives for virtual worlds and Web 4. Everyone from the industry, but also policymakers at European level are really pushing for the development scale up, especially for SMEs. So as digital SME, we are also on top of the topic, and we together with this webinar, we also would like to provide more initiatives in this sector. So we are also calling for your interest. We are looking at how many users and especially SMEs would be interested in future activities on the topic. So feel free to scan the code or also check the link in the chat for a very simple form to stay updated for the upcoming opportunities in the field. So this would be the last slide for today. We are 15 minutes late, 5 minutes late, but I think it was worth it to also see some actionable part from the meeting. I hope you had a pleasurable day, and I also want to take the opportunity to thank again all of our speakers, Christoph, Ismail, and Michael, as well as my colleagues Lina for the excellent moderation, and also Justina for the opening. And of course, the keynote, Mrs. Bayard. So thank you very much again, and I wish everyone a very nice afternoon. Stay in touch and feel free to connect with us or with the speakers should you wish to know more or get engaged on particular activities.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Christoph, Michael. Thank you. Good.